reassemble the image, so you know where each piece is when you're putting it together in context to the following piece. And it has to be, you know, something that's, because I think a lot of you are encountering these Panotraits that I make now through this biprinting process. Doesn't have to be out of just 2 images. You can do this with as long as that you've got a register on your images, you can add as many images in as you like. Obviously the final image is obviously going to increase in size. You have to bear that in mind too. But some of my Panotraits are quite, yeah, big, because I'll do multiple versions of the same image, obviously, in different media. So yeah, we'll be on, this is part 2 by now. Yeah, we're a minute and a half in. I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention as that scrolled over into the second part. Yeah, I'm just going through the process of demonstrating how I sort of go from the printing image to the pack, because I've had a few questions about bits and pieces of the process that I'm using, and without having the editing stuff available to, well, it's not that it's not available, I just haven't got the time to do it all at the moment. I can't crop it all down, and I'm obviously using techniques that I've demonstrated in earlier videos, and then sort of compounding other techniques on top of that. So the way I've established if you're just watching this and this is the first time you come to my like the biplate stuff that I do, the way I established that image upon that plate, which I've had a couple of questions about in a previous video, you can see that demonstrably, well, it's demonstrated quite clearly in the Stiper Stones tutorial, how I get a drawn image, a line drawing image, and emboss it over using a technique from the fantastic Yeats makes, which I highly recommend you go and give him a follow. And me, go, yeah, subscribe to his, if you're, and I'm guessing that most of you watching this are looking for the things for the gel plates. He's a fantastic resource to go to. Can't recommend it too highly. Right, so we're nearly there. Last bit, nice and gently, otherwise skids. And then don't get a straight line. There we go. Right, I'll just flip them over. Just going to go that way round. Yeah, so you can see how these greys are going to interact. That grey is really going to bring out the highlights that I've left unshaded, and it will sort of bring continuity across the image as well, where I have used the greys to shade in on. So it gives a lot more reason to the highlights than there were in maybe previous incarnations of these what am I calling them, biplate Panotrait. It's all getting a bit gobbledygook now, isn't it? Right, so yeah, that's going like that. So it's a good idea at this point, because obviously I've cut them with differing thicknesses across the two of them, so to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so they've both got 10. The reason I do that is sometimes you have one with one more piece or a couple more pieces. That's obviously, it's not always the case, but sometimes that's a good one to start with as the exterior, what will hold the composition or the first piece in place. So let's push these back here so you can see this all on the camera. Right, so I do a dummy run of it first, so that's that one. Get all of this out of the way, leave them nice and clear. Being awkward. So as you can imagine, like I said, you don't have to use just 2 images to do this. But if you do use more than 2 images, then you start having to play within the composition a lot more. I'm left with no option. I've got to, because I'm using just 2 images to establish this new image, there's got to be contrast between each strip that I'm putting down here. So once I've made a decision on which is the establishing first piece, that's it. It's just a matter of zigzagging them between those contrasting 2 images that I've split from the one image that was originally on the gel plate that I painted. But if you have more, then you start having to think about where the eye would fall. If I had 3 or 4 of them, there'd be different lengths and thicknesses of stripe within the details of the portrait, and you need to think about how you're expanding that out and how you're going to retain continuity. So like everything that you increase in size, the room for error exponentially increases at the rate that you're increasing the size up. The 2 things are related. Error and size. Very related. I think so anyway. So there we go, you get a rough idea. I'm going to go with that just for the sake of time, because I think if I pull my finger out I can get this done inside an hour, which would be magic to do that. Because then you've seen, I've given you the lot, then you've got the whole process in terms of how I build it. I tend to go for that kind of adhesive, depending on where you are. That's quite common over in the UK. We all know Yoo-hoo over in the UK. I don't know whether I guess it's pretty widely available across Europe. I don't know if it's available in the Americas or not, but it's a contact solvent adhesive. I don't tend to go for PVA. It just hasn't got that immediate stickiness to it, and this needs that from what I've experienced of it. And I've built a few of these Panotraits. Okay, another thing I would advise you to do is have a piece of cardboard when you're gluing like this, because messy old process, this part. Right, okay, so I use one of these, which is a out of a stretcher bars that you put into the corner to hold the stretcher bars rigid. You can they usually they're wooden, but the plastic ones are great because you can give them a clean once the glue's dry. You don't need much glue, obviously. They're thin stripes of paper, and then smear it on like that. Lift, there we go. Use it to lift it. So I can see well enough to get that bang on with that line. It's not that big a deal. Okay, so we've established the first one there. Try and keep this all in shot for you. And because I've already registered it's the size of the paper that's the register. I just have to keep the tops and the bottoms parallel with each other when I'm sticking this together. What I mean by that is just it's a nice clean line across there, and then butt them up against each other. Once it's on, nice and simple. When it's the bigger they get, and if you start using contours instead of stripes, which is what I've done in the past, things get really complicated with the gluing part then. But that's another range of videos. That's not just one video, that's a few, that is. So yeah, just to reiterate as a bit of an aside while I'm doing this, I'm not going to be doing the live broadcasts anymore, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to film at least 2 videos like this, hopefully, as long as I keep coming up with ideas, a week, and then I'll drop one at the weekend, probably on a Saturday, and one during the week. Yeah, it's been great hearing, just hearing how other people have found uses for it. And yeah, while I'm on that subject, it would be great if you do use it. I'm really interested in seeing how you use it. I've been using this technique and this approach. It's been a bit like a ping pong ball inside my head for 4 years now, at least, a little bit longer maybe. And it's great seeing other people use it and what ideas that they generate out of it, because I'm just an individual. I can't figure it all out to it, but I know that there's probably a myriad of other applications for using this approach to printmaking. And it just gives you, the whole thing with me coming up with a bite, if I didn't have this Panotrait way of assembling images, I would never have seen the biplate thing, I don't think, at all. There's something I'd have just scrapped. I'd have just taken it as a print that didn't work, rather than, I think that having the Panotraits in the background of my subconscious gives me that facility. I rarely look at a piece of work now and think that it's finished if I do one version of it. I just think how much more complicated I can do. And people who know me in my day-to-day life will just go, yeah, well, that is definitely true to your character, Josh, because I'm good at that. Making things complicated is I have a real knack for that one. getting now. Just going to check on the time. Oh yeah, I'll have this done in no time for the half-hour cut-off. And if you know someone who's quite good with their hands, got a bit of woodworking kit, specifically like a mitre cutter, they can cut clean mitres, then it's worth, if you're on good terms with them, it's worth, and you're quite interested in like following on with what I do. Like I said earlier, I think I said this in part 1, I might have said it in this part, but I'm going to reiterate it anyway, that it's a big part of what I do is using light boxes in order to compound imagery, and like I try to treat I suppose I try to treat each one of that I'm looking for transparency all the time, I think, in people and in my artwork and myself. Light boxes are a really good vehicle for achieving some of those effects, being able to see through to the other side, and then the context of a dual compositioned image sort of gives you a triple compositioned image, because you can sandwich an image in between the images that you have on both sides of the sheet of paper. You will literally be doing that if you compound them anyway. You will be making a third image from the two images. So it definitely paid off doing that bit of grey pen work. See how that's affecting. It sits well with those grey stripes. Would probably be a bit too bold if they didn't have the complementary grey pen work going on in the other part of the biprint. I think it would anyway. Gives it a nice continuity across the whole image, or appears to be doing that. Yeah, so it didn't go. I thought it was going to be quite a complicated. Well, I think it was. There's quite a lot of information in here, I think. I don't think I'm blathering too much. No, I do that a bit. Last 4 pieces. So yeah, the register is a big deal, getting the 2 images once you've got them. I'll put the link in for the stiper stones, which shows you how I achieved the initial image transfer onto the plate, and then there's a couple of videos now demonstrating on my YouTube channel and on Facebook how I achieve the biplate, which is quite simple really. I just don't use the binder layer that I use on, well, I use that on all of my prints. I just partially bind a layer what I want to lift away from the gel plate, and then obviously leave that to dry, pull that away, and then you're left with a residual image and a printing image. And then it's a matter of registering those. If you're doing it on this scale, it's a much better thing to register the paper than it is to find the register within the print plate, the gel print plate, because you'll just lose as you right angle off and register within the gel plate. You'll lose a lot of there'll be excess to the register, and it's already a really, if it's on this scale, it's a 15 by 15 centimetre gel plate. It's a very small gel plate. You don't really want to do that. You want to register the paper rather than the other techniques that I was using before with the register, because I'm using a bigger gel plate, so I can afford to lose a bit within the gel plate, the gel press plate itself, in order to establish the register. But obviously as the scale gets smaller, that's something that if you can, you should probably try to avoid, as I have done here. So I'm going to zoom in a bit now. I'm going to adjust the camera so there you go. That's what it looks like as a finished image. Obviously I'll post some stills later. Yeah, I think it's all explained now. I'm trying to go back through it. I think there's quite a lot of complicated stuff there. It's probably worth having a notepad, as I said at the beginning, and take a few notes on what it is that I'm doing and saying. But it's all there. The registering of the paper is quite important, because that's slightly different to how I've done it in previous videos. And I just wanted to show you how I go from splitting those plates and then cutting it up and literally building the Panotrait. And it was a bit difficult with bigger pieces. It was proving too time extravagant, but we've done it this time, so I'm well chuffed with that. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. If you think it's worth a subscribe and like and a follow, I'd appreciate it. That would be much appreciated. Thanks a lot for the regulars who keep coming back and giving me great feedback and insight into what it is that they're seeing at the other end of this process. That's been really helpful. I'll keep posting. Like I said, I'm not going to do the live ones anymore. I think it's a bit pointless. Most of the people seem to be watching me as and when and I don't blame them. I'd do the same. So I'll keep posting. That's not a problem. They just won't be live. But I'm around most of the time. Drop me a line. I'm pretty approachable. Thanks a lot. I'll see you later in the week. Ta-ra.